Well, welcome to the show with me, Jillian Godsil, and Matt Haynes. We are doing Blockleaders, chatting about the crypto blockchain week. So where to start, Matt? Well, we're in the middle of coronavirus, so everything is coronavirus. But where to start? Where would you like to begin?
Man, I don't even know where to begin. It's funny because while the world shuts down, blockchain and cryptocurrency keeps going at 100 miles a minute. It's been crazy. I know I'm actually probably busier than I was prior to the beginning of this. And for me, like, not a lot has changed. I'm kind of a homebody anyway. Tend to be behind my computer working. So the only difference is that now I exercise at home. And it's not to take away from the fact that, it's what's going on right now is really seriously, but just in terms of a working perspective, there isn't a heck of a lot of change in my life, but we have seen some interesting things in the world of blockchain over the last week. So, I have a few different things that I want to talk about, but why don't you kick it off with something that you noticed over the last little while, and then we'll go from there.
Okay, well, one of the things we see, obviously, there's the whole health issues, and that's like, and the health, I've got two sisters who are nurses, and it's ramping up here in Ireland, it's horrendous. But at the same time, we also have the financial issues. And what was interesting was, like, in the US, the Fed is putting us at $6 trillion as a stimulus package, which is great because people need money. They need money. The jobs are stopping. There's lockdown. They need it. And Trump was apparently defending the Fed, saying, it's our money. It's infinite money. And then, of course, all the crypto commentators were saying that was the best advertising for Bitcoin that you could possibly have because, Bitcoin, you can't just print it. So I thought it was a very stark contrast. And I think we saw, first of all, the cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin following the stocks and shares, but now there's been a resurgence again. Now, who knows what's going to happen? So up and down a bit, but it's got back. It's around the 6,000, I think, at the moment, 6.5. And I think there's a resurgence. There is this, because people thought that Bitcoin and the cryptocurrencies would soar at the start of a financial crisis. They haven't initially, but it looks as if they're gaining ground. And even I saw there was also Monero, privacy coin, that's outpacing Bitcoin at the moment.
Yes,
and I got mad. The Coinbase CEO, he was remarking it, and John McAfee was commenting on it too as well. So the privacy coins are obviously, and it makes sense because right now we're in lockdown. Our governments have huge powers, which I subscribe to. I understand that, but someone says that where is the first democracy that has been the victim of cryptocurrency? And it's in Hungary. No, Turkey. I think Turkey, because they've brought in very wide sweeping powers, political powers. Yeah. So anyway, that's kind of my first sort of take on what's happening in the industry. Sorry for rabbiting on then.
No, go ahead. I personally, I'm very fascinated with a lot of what's going on. And it's very ironic, some of the comments made by Donald Trump in terms of printing, what's going on right now with the Fed. I'm very fascinated by the financial aspects and some of the really unfortunate financial repercussions of what's happening right now. It's pretty scary. There's only 21 million Bitcoin. There will only be 21 million Bitcoin in existence. Of course, it is an inflationary asset, but we know that at 21 million, that's where it's going to be. We're not going to see any more Bitcoin after that. And of course, the Fed at this point is printing a lot of money, and there's some really interesting books on that. If you ever get a chance, The Creature from Jekyll Island is a really good read. And desperate times call for desperate measures. I'm just not fully convinced that some of those desperate measures are going to be good for the longevity. So I think it's good that people are starting to take a look at Bitcoin. And that's not just from my own personal fill my bags and make money perspective, but just from having sound financial money that has kind of a limit on inflation. It makes sense to me. So I can relate to that. Yeah. Did you hear?
I was saying, sorry, just to jump in there. There was a quote by Tyler Winklevoss, the co-founder of Gemini Crypto Exchange. And he said, Bitcoin is the only vaccine in the world that can give you immunity to the money printing disease.
Yeah. He's bang on. He's bang on. Yeah. In other news, and it's not a huge, revolutionary thing, but it was kind of funny to see that Binance recently purchased CoinMarketCap.com, which is where you go to find out the various valuations of all of the cryptocurrencies. So they stepped up and reportedly, although this isn't confirmed, so they said they had purchased it for as much as $400 million.
I heard that, yeah.
Pretty interesting because it's got a lot of traffic. That's where everybody goes to check the price of the various cryptocurrencies.
And I mean, Brandon Chase, who is the founder, I think he's stepping aside. He's a bit erratic, I think, isn't he? I don't know him, but there's rumors that he does it all from his bedroom or something like that. And with Binance coming in, I'm very pleased because I do use cap the whole time. It's the one place I go to for my pricing.
Yeah.
So Binance moving in is interesting, very, very interesting. And I'm hoping that they maybe do more content, because that'll be interesting, because people use that site and it's a trusted site. So content would be interesting on that site. Actually, speaking of Binance, because there's another story that I was watching in India, because you know how last year, 2018, the Reserve Bank of India banned crypto, and then that was overturned recently. Yes. In March the 4th, there a little while ago, the Supreme Court overturned it. Yep. And Binance is very active in India too as well, because they purchased the WazirX in November 2019. It's an Indian crypto exchange, and they've got 50 million in funds, which is going to back local blockchain projects. Now, I know India hasn't featured very much so far in the crypto virus world. We don't, scary, because it's over 1 billion people there, and they live in very close quarters. But in terms of blockchain and crypto, that's very positive.
Yeah, I think blockchain is a great use case, particularly for India. Just kind of using some digital assets to be able to represent, I won't say it's stable. I think we'll see some of the prices stabilize in time, but just alternative measures to be able to exchange value. I think India is one of those nations where we're going to see a lot of innovation come. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, and there's 190 million, unbanked. So that's, that makes sense too as well.
It does.
And then also rewatching, like there's loads of tech companies out there, as well as all the frontline workers and the volunteers and all the good stuff that we're hearing, people trying to get together and help. All the tech companies are trying to come forward and find solutions faster. The pharma companies are trying to get the vaccines faster. And then there's a big one. The WHO launched a blockchain platform to fight COVID-19, and they're partnering with IBM and Oracle and Microsoft and Hasera, I don't know them, and MyPasa is the name of this project, which is early detection of COVID-19 carriers and infection hotspots. I mean, there's other ones too as well. In other countries, you see it all over the place, tech companies coming forward, and a lot of them are on blockchain because that's the immutability, the transparency, the things that we need. Yeah. So it's proving a very valuable tool in this current crisis.
Absolutely, and so it should. It's interesting because on that note, I think with this whole crisis, we're seeing a lot of censorship inside of the news, and we're seeing a lot of our social media platforms, including Twitter, and in particular YouTube, which has had this odd event over the last little while of these censorship actions against a lot of cryptocurrency content producers. And what they're actually seeing is there's a huge emergence or kind of change in popularity in some of the decentralized alternatives where censorship isn't really a big thing. And you've got a lot of alternatives to YouTube. Unfortunately, YouTube is really that hub where everybody goes to get their information. But I think people are kind of starting to get fed up with some of the censorship that's going on in terms of not only blockchain, but even access to information about COVID. And people are starting to use various other platforms like BitTube, BitChute, and DTube, which is actually built on the Steam blockchain. So people are kind of starting to put together the little bits and pieces, and they're sick of a lot of the censorship that we're seeing in regards to cryptocurrency, in regards to the exchange of information. And it's really starting to drive an emergence of a lot of these alternative platforms where you can't be censored and you can share information, and it's stored on the blockchain, it's immutable, and it provides just a really nice, authentic record. So I think that's kind of neat. I wouldn't say it's even a silver lining, but just to be able to see people start to realize some of the benefits of decentralization through a lot of the things that we're experiencing in the current times. It's probably kind of...
Well, it's good because I use quite a few other platforms like Uptrend and Publish.io, which way is, because I just find, I do use Facebook still, but don't really like it. And I like to be rewarded for my efforts. So I use LinkedIn because it's handy for business. But Uptrend, I love that. I don't know if you use that site or not. It's Uptrend with 2 N's.com. And it's a fantastic bunch. There's a lot of content. And I really like that. So, and I also, I'm acquiring the Up tokens the whole time. That's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
I don't know how many I have now, but it's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, what that does is it redistributes the incentives. Typically speaking, some of these platforms, you don't want to get me started on Facebook right now. I do have an account, but I use it strictly to contact people from my childhood and people that I have previous friendships with. And at the point that another popular social media site that has at least better information sharing policies emerges, then I'll definitely tackle that as well. And re-incentivizing, some of the rewards. Typically speaking, a lot of these centralized companies, you put out the content, you put out the information, they take it, they make millions.
Yeah.
So some of these alternative measures to be able to get paid for some, particularly for content creators, to be able to make rewards for some of the things that they're doing to teach people and share information are a really good thing. It's great to see.
Yeah, no, I agree. And actually, I read, because I'm a journalist, obviously, and so creating content is what I do, and I like to be paid for it. I do some of it promotional and some of it free, but it's nice to be paid for your words. And but I read a really nice article by a journalist called Danny Nelson. I don't know him. He's over in CoinDesk. But he did a really nice piece on the end of cash with the pandemic, and he was talking about COVID-19 being a catalyst for a systemic payment change. And it's really interesting. He's looking at how the more advanced countries like Sweden, only 26% of all transactions are still in cash. And of course, we know in the African continent, which is on the other side of the world, on the other side of being developed and developing, but most of them are going straight to mobile payment options because they don't have bank accounts. So it's an interesting thing. And he was talking about different things. He was saying that cash literally is dirty money because there's all those germs on it, 3,000 germs every note. Yep. And China's trying to sterilize its notes, and the banks apparently are healthier now. The old banks are healthier now than they were in the 2008 crash, but they've been stockpiling cash, and they don't want people to take all their money out. That's why they're saying that money is dirty.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's kind of conflicting stuff. And then they were saying, he was at the very end, he said that there's a rush to crypto. It was a very interesting article, but he said in China the government spies on you. In the US, companies spy on you.
Yeah, I think both the government and companies spy on you. If you ever get a chance, you've got to check out Joe Rogan's podcast with Edward Snowden. That will blow your mind and wake a lot of people up. So I'm a fan of Joe Rogan. Go and check that out. But
I will do. I
worry about some of these changes to some of these digitized forms of money, particularly in Canada and the US. They've been speaking about a digital dollar, but it's not using some of the benefits of blockchain. It's simply making it easier to sit there and particularly in the US, continue to print money as it's done on maybe a closed centralized server. You just still don't have the visibility, you still don't have the transparency, and you still don't have the trust. So it's nice to see some of the benefits and the way of thinking about some of these digital assets changing, but I worry that maybe we're not going down the right route. And I wouldn't fully expect the United States governments to decentralize their national currency, but I think it just makes them easier to hit that button and continue to pump money into the reserve system, which could eventually lead to massive hyperinflation and some other scary things. So,
I mean, it's interesting because I was talking with my daughter again about, getting the payment here, and she said, where does the money come from? And I said, well, they're printing it. It's called quantitative easing, they're getting loans, or there's euro loans. And I said, nowadays running a country is kind of weird because people spend, they borrow and then they spend. And right now we need to get the money, and that's important. But in the world post the pandemic, what does that mean? And that'll be interesting to see what it means for regular fiat, and regular folks, because obviously we want to protect ordinary people. And right now I'm very grateful that I'm getting a payment, because otherwise I'd be, a bit worried, to say the least. And I admire, I'm very proud of what the government's doing, but there is ramifications on it as well. It's not, we need to do this now because the surge is coming. We need to do it now, and we're at the start of the surge here in Ireland. Yeah. But it's afterwards. And I'm alternating between being a bit worried about this new world we're living in, and all these new rules and stuff like that. And I'm kind of going, well, we need them. I know that, I'm locked down. I understand all that. But afterwards, I want to make sure all the positive things that are happening are, for example, we have a homeless problem and a housing problem in Ireland. They couldn't fix it, Maria. Yeah. And now they're fixing it. Or the hospitals, we had a huge problem with the hospital trolleys. They're fixing it. They've taken over all the private hospitals. They've got 70,000 volunteers out of a population of 4 million of healthcare workers who volunteered to come back, and we can fix it. We really can fix it. So I think that's what I'm sort of hanging on to. That's going to make some difficult things, and a bit worried about the extra laws. But afterwards, people power is going to say, no, put those back now, and let's be good to each other.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that they will. I'm a little bit skeptical on that, to be honest with you, which is
a bit of a worry.
Yeah, some of the things that we're doing right now, particularly in the U.S. economy, I think are going to have long-standing and devastating effects in the future. But I don't want to go down the doomsday route for too long. No. Instead, I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to talk about some of the cool ways that the technology is being applied in the modern world. General Motors recently went for a decentralized blockchain patent, which will be used in some of their vehicles, which will be used to identify kind of discrepancies in known navigation on maps. So we're going to see a blockchain system be used for what I would assume would be maybe autonomous vehicles, or at least smart vehicles that are going to use some of the capabilities of the blockchain to be able to make better autonomous decisions and to be able to interact with different economies. So on a positive note, it's nice to see that some of this stuff is really growing. People are starting to realize the power of blockchain, and it's being used at scale in some really neat blockchain applications, which is great to see.
It's good.
Yes.
Well, I have a joke for you.
Go.
Only it's a visual joke, so I've got to describe it. So I've got a picture of it here. It was very funny. It was a joke. It was said, "What is a 2020 white paper?" So the title underneath it, pictures of loo roll, a toilet roll.
Yeah, yeah, that's
2020 white paper.
It's
toilet paper.
Yep, the currency of the future. CoinMarketCap also, if you check the top of CoinMarketCap, I'm not sure if it's still there. It might have been an April Fool's joke. But the top performing coin, I think, was a toilet paper coin. They had a little white paper that was written up, and the chart actually looked like a kind of a butt with some toilet paper coming out of it. So I thought that was kind of a good play.
That could have been April Fool.
yeah, it could have very well been.
Yeah, to cheer us up.
Yeah, it was good. It was actually really good. So that was great to see. There are some negatives to what's going on here in the economy right now. I don't know if you heard about Factom, but Factom was a really interesting piece of blockchain technology that unfortunately is now in a liquidation phase. And it was actually invested in by Tim Draper and Medici Ventures. And it looks like they're actually collapsing. And they had a really phenomenal system of being able to organize records, medical records and otherwise on the blockchain. And it was a really popular project, and it showed a lot of promise. But I think there are also some projects that might be getting hit by some of the economic activity from coronavirus in a negative way. So I think there will be probably as much as we'll see some transition into cryptocurrencies, there's probably also going to be some various businesses that we see suffer and maybe default. So I was sad to hear that.
Yeah, because I guess we know that traditional industries such as tourism and aviation, entertainment, they've all been hit. Cinemas, they've all been hit. But the good news is that the blockchain jobs continue to rise despite all this. And Kraken apparently has got 10% job increase up to they're either employing 67 or up to 67 people. And indeed, the Job Finders website, they've gone up in 3% in February, more jobs per million in blockchain.
I can believe it. I don't think I've been busier as I have over the last 3 weeks since we kind of started this whole quarantine thing. I work on various blockchain projects and in various consulting roles on various avenues. And I honestly, I barely have time to eat these days. It's been busy. So I think as some of the other industries slow down, there's going to be a lot more opportunities to be able to get involved in blockchain and to be able to work remotely. So I was actually quite surprised. I think that certain parts of blockchain will probably shrink, but I can also see that, with the discovery process of what's going on and some of the financial things that are happening in the world, people will probably make their way over to blockchain. And then, as we said, it's kind of the year of blockchain fatigue. And we're going to see probably a lot of companies that are going to start to position themselves and more corporate entities, more sophisticated entities that are going to use the technology to do big things. So it should be a really interesting year.
It should. Wow. Okay, well, we're both surviving the quarantine. We haven't quite gone mad yet. And so I guess I'll say be safe in Costa Rica and here in Little Ireland. Be safe as well. And to all our listeners and viewers, be good, be safe, and help each other.
Well said, Jillian. Thanks so much for your time, and I look forward to doing it again soon. Take care.
Brilliant. Okay. Thank you.
Bye.